Frank Part 2. Author, Unal Ada. Frank enters the room and looks at the old man. He examines the countless tubes and cables connected to him. It's not difficult to see that he's the only one being kept alive by all these machines. Quietly, he approaches the old man, takes a chair and sits down next to him. He watches him for a while. Whether he feels sorry for him is hard to say. It's clear, though, that he's not looking at him entirely unmoved. After a while, he takes his hand, and at that moment the machines suddenly spring to life, as does the old man. Since they're in this man's large estate, several nurses immediately rush into the room. When they see Frank with the sick man, they immediately order him to leave the room immediately, and they also ask him who he is and how he got in there. But that doesn't seem to bother Frank much. But when they rush to him and try to remove him from the sick man, he glares at them threateningly and tells them to leave the room. Immediately, he yells at them, realizing they're making no move to obey his orders and leave the room. When one of the nurses, a woman, uses her radio to call for security personnel, Frank loses his temper and starts yelling at them, whereupon they hastily and fearfully leave the room. As soon as Frank is alone with the old man again, guards storm into the room and immediately point their guns at Frank. They demand that he get away from the man immediately, otherwise they will shoot him. Frank is now truly annoyed and looks over his shoulder at the guards.
"Don't make fools of yourselves and piss off, you bums, now, or I'll throw you all out the window."
Suddenly, the men start shooting at Frank. When he hears the shots, he slowly turns toward them. Time seems to stand still. The bullets have just left the barrels of the guns when they're already hanging in the air. Frank slowly approaches the men who have just shot at him. He stands in front of them and calmly looks at each of them.
"Listen, you jerks, this is my final warning. Don't look so stupid. I know you can hear me and are well aware of your hopeless situation. No, this isn't a dream, and yes, you did shoot at me. But your bullets can't hurt me. So either you're smart enough to figure that out and get the hell out of here right now, never to enter this room again, or you're as stupid as you look. In that case, however, you'll be responsible if I rip off every single one of your stupid heads and throw them out the window. Is everything clear? You're all some special forces guys, right? That's what you usually are. The ones who can't get anything done on the battlefield anymore, or are simply too old for war games played by some rich jerks, drug dealer scum, or dogs of some shitty government. They're typical assholes like you, pre-retirement. Want to put a few bills aside and are not above doing any dirty work, no matter how disgusting. I'm not exactly famous for feeling much pity for such scum like you, so think very carefully about what you're about to do. Mark my words, you filthy scum, because there won't be another warning."
As he finishes, everything returns to normal speed, and bullets fly throughout the room. Some hit the walls, some fly through the windows, but none of them hit him. Frank is now standing directly in front of the guards. They still have their weapons drawn and pointed at him. But instead of firing a second shot, they look at each other, perplexed. They look as astonished as they are completely confused, while Frank looks at them as if asking them with his eyes whether they've understood and should simply leave the room, or whether they want to fire a second shot. The men, however, don't seem so stupid, and one of them gives them the order to retreat. Still confused and incredulous, they leave the room one by one. Before the last one leaves the room, who appears to be their superior because he also gave the order to leave, Frank calls out to him to stop. He stops and turns to Frank.
"Listen, this doesn't have to end worse for you. You should let go of the idea of preparing to storm this room. Think of your pregnant wife. She's giving birth next week, and it's your decision whether your daughter will ever meet her father or not. This is something beyond your comprehension. It's a completely different dimension, and I want to give you something else. You chose this training and this job, and you're really good at what you do, but you should ask yourself whether a good life, which is already so short, is worth losing your soul for. But those are things you're not thinking about right now. This man here, the old man behind me, whom you're willing to protect with your life, for whom you would also sacrifice the lives of your men, isn't worth it. But you wouldn't understand that anyway, and I don't have time to explain everything to idiots like you. So, be a good idiot, and not only leave this room, but also stop your men from senselessly wasting their lives. Besides, that old bastard is dying anyway. There's nothing you can do for him, so don't prolong his suffering, and now, get out of here. Stop looking so stupid and get the hell out of here."
The man had been looking at Frank very intently the entire time he was speaking, and he was experienced enough not to detect a hint of fear or excitement in Frank's eyes. It was clear to him that Frank was either an incredibly stupid psychopath or an inscrutable madman, one who, however, seemed determined to do anything. What ultimately prevented him from immediately attacking Frank was the fact that he had somehow stopped time earlier. There was simply too much that was unexplainable about this encounter, and he had been involved far too long to rashly enter a situation he couldn't yet fully assess. The best thing for him was to first comply with Frank's request and then figure something out later. But Frank seemed to not only know his intentions, but also be aware of his personal situation. If he hadn't mentioned his wife and her pregnancy, he would probably react differently at that moment, but now he had to comply. The fact that Frank knew about his intentions to regroup with his men outside and storm the area with a new tactic could simply be due to Frank's experience and didn't necessarily mean anything. But he did know about his wife's pregnancy and that it was going to be a girl. They hadn't even told their closest relatives and friends. Apart from the doctor, his wife and himself, no one knew. He decided to retreat, so he too left the room. When he came out, his men were already there, and they immediately asked him what they should do. He was thoughtful, ignored their questions, and told them to follow him. He was certain that something was wrong with Frank. Not only he, but all his men had been standing there petrified until a few minutes ago, while Frank calmly walked through the sphere in mid-air. He hated situations that he couldn't accurately analyze and assess. And in this one, he not only had no idea what had just happened, but also no explanation for it. Therefore, he thought it best to inform the police, which he did. It only took a few minutes for several police cars to show up in front of the huge property. While his men, like him, looked at each other in bewilderment, he informed the officers that a dangerous burglar had barricaded himself in the hospital room of the property with his client, who was in serious need of care. Several officers immediately stormed the house and rushed into the sick room. The remaining officers checked whether anyone else was in the house and then began evacuating them. When the officers tried to enter the sick room, they couldn't open the door. No matter what they did, they simply couldn't get it open. Another officer, who was still outside and had been informed by radio of the failed attempt to enter the sick room, called on Frank over the loudspeaker to surrender. No one would be hurt, and they could end the situation immediately and easily to everyone's satisfaction. Frank should just cooperate and leave the room with his hands up. But Frank wasn't thinking about it. He was now completely absorbed in the old man. He was now in the mental world of this old man, who found himself in a dark environment with no discernible boundaries, as if he were standing in the darkness of nothingness.
"Wake up, old man. Your time on Earth is now coming to an end. Here I am. You've lived long enough. Come here, sit next to me. Don't be afraid. Nothing will happen to you. I'm going to give you a glimpse of your past life. Not only are you dead, you also have no chance of returning to your previous life. Look here, you're still a little boy. You're wondering who that is, especially since it's a completely different time than the boy in front of you. But that's you. Yes, that's actually you. About 600 years ago, you made a decision. Let's say, very serious, truly momentous decision. You decided of your own free will to become what you were in this life. You know, I was an atheist for most of my life. Really, I never believed in anything like a god or anything like that, and I'll tell you something else. The most important reasons that kept me from believing in something like a god were actually quite banal things. Questions that everyone probably asks themselves in their life, some even constantly. Why the hell does God, who is supposedly all-powerful, allow so much evil? He is all-powerful. He could wipe out evil with the snap of a finger. Why has he never done that? Why did he allow and continues to allow so much suffering and misery, war and pain, so much evil to exist in the world ever since humans came into existence? For a very long time, the answer to that for me was simply that he must be perverted. Yes, really, if God were truly all-powerful, and he must be since that is what all religions say he should be, he would have to be absolutely crazy at the sight of all this horror and suffering in the world. That was the first reason why I became an atheist. The second reason was why an all-knowing, all-powerful God had to constantly subject us to all sorts of stupid tests. Why did God do such a thing? I constantly asked myself. I mean, in his omnipotence, he should know who will think, say, and do what and when. So why did God constantly and endlessly subject us to all sorts of stupid and pointless tests? I don't want to brag, or maybe I do, maybe a little. Well, actually a little more than just a little. But I can finally answer these two questions clearly. Please don't look at me like that. You usually look at everything and everyone so fondly and disparagingly. What's going on? Where has all your conceit, all your arrogance and self-importance gone? You look like a pathetic, scared schoolboy. It's really pathetic to have to watch, honestly. What did you expect? That you might be welcomed here? Endlessly admired and respected? I have bad, very bad news for you. Forget it. There aren't any 72 virgins waiting for you here. Wait, it wasn't meant for you anyway. You're not a Muslim. You're not religious anyway. It doesn't make any difference what you don't believe in. But I also have good news for you. The guy okay, not you, isn't religious, but all the other idiots who believe in some made-up, fabricated God, at least the believers among you idiots, somehow have hope for salvation. And yes, even a huge asshole like you. Such salvation actually exists. I have no idea why he's doing it, but he wants nothing more than for all the souls to return to him in the end, and that's exactly why there's a redemption for you too. But don't get excited too soon. The bad news is yet to come. And here's the best news, because it's bad. You'll have to pay for everything you've messed up in your life for a long, long time. And that's a lot. I didn't buy tickets for your show, but I'll still sit in the front row and enjoy watching all the terrible things that will happen to you. I'm already really looking forward to it, man. It will be a real joy for me to watch your soul suffer and endure all the hellish pain. But don't get carried away. Your play won't be so interesting that I'd watch it all the way through. Besides, I don't have a few hundred years to witness all your misery, but let's get back to the reason I should come to you. You probably don't know this, but I'm, so to speak, employed by the good guys. And those idiots just can't let a soul burn in hell forever. I don't know if it was the curse of insatiability that kept you from letting things go and from being such a complete asshole, even though you had everything that 99.9% of people will never have. But you were that disgusting villain, and of your own free will. You didn't have to be. You had more than almost anyone else in the world. But you always wanted to be the biggest asshole of all the assholes out there. Well, congratulations, you were really successful at that. What you weren't successful at all, however, was your inability to feel empathy. So that you don't die stupid. I'm going to tell you what the most important emotion of all living beings is, what living beings are capable of. It's neither love nor respect, but only empathy. Yeah, you can still learn something from me, right? Only those who lack empathy are capable of the worst atrocities and cruelties. And those who retain their empathy also create an invisible barrier within themselves that will always prevent them from doing cruel things to others. You completely abandoned your empathy a long time ago. That's why you have no conscience, nor do you acknowledge all your many mistakes. The only thing you feel is remorse, regret that you weren't even colder, even harder than you always were. That's why it no longer makes sense to send you back. You've proven your incompetence so many times that you'll never learn from your mistakes. But between you and me, what did you actually think? I mean, no one can really be that stupid as to seriously believe they can be an asshole in this world without getting their comeuppance at some point. So I'm here to show you a way out. You'll have to consider this in-between world your home for a long time to come. You've already screwed up far too many times and you're not allowed to reincarnate again. But you're not allowed to return to our Creator, to that infinite energy either. So what's left? Exactly. This place here. This in-between world. And this is where you'll have to stay for a few hundred years, if not thousands. I know it's not a particularly pleasant place, and there aren't tons of people following you around wiping your ass before they crawl in and make themselves comfortable. And here comes the worst of all bad news. You've hit the jackpot, except it's not quite what you were hoping for. Here you will have to pay for every action, no matter how small or insignificant, even for every single one of your words and deeds. And believe me, all the suffering you've experienced in this world is a joke compared to what you have to endure here. And there's no escape. Your problem is that everything has been in vain for you, and it will remain so. No matter how many times you live, for you, existence is exhausted by allowing yourself to be degraded to an insignificant cog in the clockworks of life. You've snagged a place for yourself in this world, are making the most of it, and are firmly convinced that you're living a beautiful, happy, successful life. You have no idea what happiness is, and certainly not what life itself is. So what good would it do if you were born 1,000 more times? You're selfish, self-important, arrogant, and extremely condescending towards others. You've had your chances. You've never learned anything from them. And you've demonstrated your disgusting ways time and time again, and now it's the end of the line for you. Now you're here looking at me stupidly and wondering if this is all real. Shit, right? When life isn't about making things as good as possible for yourself. When saving your soul doesn't lie in living the best life possible, but in helping others do the same. But you don't even realize it yourself. The truth has always been there for you and very easy to see. But you've always stubbornly refused to recognize it because you didn't like it, because your own ambitions have always been more important to you than the needs of others. And now you find yourself in this place and you're wondering where God is. The old man with the beard and all, but instead of meeting your God, you find yourself here in the middle of nowhere. He's always been there for you, all around you, even inside you. But you just didn't want to see him. Pretty stupid, I'd say. For you, anyway. Whoever does not recognize God in the smile of another, whoever does not see God in the joy he brings to others, whoever does not recognize innocence, the pure joy of life, and thus God himself in the uninhibited play of a small dog. Anyone who doesn't see God in the beauty of a simple flower will never meet an old man with a white beard, much less the infinite energy he could then call God. How could someone like you even recognize the meaning of life? But as I said before, I don't want you to die a fool. So I'm going to tell you the meaning of life now. It isn't to live the most pleasant, beautiful life possible. The meaning of life is to give life meaning. And what could such meaning be for someone like you? Well, what do you say? Wait, let me guess. For you, the meaning of life was to give your miserable existence a beautiful facade and to imagine that you were living a beautiful, pleasant, successful life. Unfortunately, you never realized that the meaning of life is to enrich others, not always just yourself. With that attitude, how, and above all, in what, could you ever have recognized or seen God? And, as I also said, this is the receipt for it. Now you're here, in the middle of nowhere, looking even more stupid than when you lived in all your blindness. Or should I say, when you vegetated before, and you still considered that a life worth striving for, so God has always been around you everywhere inside you. But you refused to recognize him. You even denied him, didn't want to acknowledge him, and always put yourself and your desires first. Anyone who finds it too difficult to recognize God and all the good that is around them everywhere and at all times, anyone who finds it more comfortable to put themselves and their own needs above everything and everyone, shouldn't be surprised if they wake up in a place like this one day. Even now, as I'm telling you all this, I'm really just pouring water into the ocean with a small spoon. And yes, that ocean is you. It's all inside you. It always has been. For those who can understand it, even the annoying buzzing of a fly can sound like a beautiful melody. For those who are unable to understand, it is often an orchestral sound, nothing but noise. God was the smile, the joy, and the hope in the eyes of those who received help. The devil, however, was the look and the hatred in the eyes of those who did cruel things to others. When you look back on your life now, how did you enrich life, the world, with your presence? What difference did your existence make? I'm sorry to have to say this to you. Or no, wait. Actually, I'm not sorry at all. I actually enjoy your stupid looks while I tell you all this, but you had everything. You had everything and so much more. And what did you do with it? Nothing. And that's exactly why you're here now, in nothingness. I'm just going to leave you and leave you alone. Don't worry, you're already dead and can't die again. But what awaits you here now after I leave you is, as terrible as it may be for you, nothing other than what has its origins within yourself. Everything that comes to you has its origin in you. It once came from you. Your bad luck. If you've blinded yourself with your insatiable greed, and thus prevented yourself from seeing the truth. Now you're probably thinking that you should have listened to Jesus, right? Well, it's too late for that now. He preached forgiveness, love, and tolerance. And all you've taken from that has been more for me. Everything for me and nothing for others. Even though you really have all the time in the world from now on, I still don't want to take any more time from you than necessary. I hate being given these kinds of assignments anyway. I prefer tasks where I can really put others down. Okay, enough blabbering. Just don't shit your pants and be brave. At least try. Because you won't be able to escape what awaits you here anyway. Maybe we'll see each other again sometime. Sometime, I mean. Then you can tell me how it went, but now I have to go, so see you later, or something.
After Frank leaves the scene, darkness suddenly descends, threatening to suffocate the old man. He hears voices and noises reaching him from a distance. With each second, the sounds become more distinct. Suddenly, he is almost frightened to death by what is now revealed to him in this absolute darkness. When Frank returns to the present, the entire house is surrounded by a special forces unit, and he hears them ordering him, saying that this is the final order, to put down his weapons, get out with his hands above his head and surrender. Frank takes a few steps to the window and sees a crowd of police officers and special forces, as well as several snipers. He lights a last cigarette, takes a few puffs, walks to the window and opens it.
Hey, you bums, I'm coming out unarmed and with my hands up. You don't want any trouble, I don't want any trouble. So stay calm and no one will get hurt. But I'm warning you, if you shoot me, I'll get angry. And believe me, you don't want me to get angry. So stay calm, wait for me, and don't even think about jumping on me, throwing me to the ground, or doing any of that nonsense, okay? You can pull that shit on real criminals, but not on me.
Then he opens the door and walks out of the house with his hands up. Immediately, a few special forces rush over to him and order him to lie down on the ground.
Wait, just a minute. Send your boss here if you don't want this to end in bloodshed. I want to speak to the person in charge, now you assholes.
While the officers look at him uncertainly, their superior approaches them and rears up threateningly in front of Frank.
Hallelujah, what a beauty we have here. I really didn't expect this, so you're the boss here, huh?
Don't do anything you'll regret. Just surrender and we'll talk about everything. This doesn't have to get any worse, okay?
Phil, I'd love to talk to you, but only after a hot session. Where are we going, your place or mine? Tell me, do you like it when I hit you a little every now and then while I fuck you?
At that moment, the officers rush at Frank and try to throw him to the ground, but something seems to be going wrong. Suddenly, the officers' weapons fall apart, and even the handcuffs they're trying to put on him crumble in their hands, and everyone looks at each other in surprise. Frank puts his hands down, slowly stands up, and takes a long, hard look, scanning everyone around him.
I told you to save yourself the hassle of arresting me. Why does no one ever listen to me? You always make things so incredibly complicated. You beautiful slut. Yes, you, come here. You're the top pussy around here, aren't you? So since you're in charge, you have two options. First, you send the medics upstairs to this old bum, and at the same time pull your men out of here. If you listen to me, no one will get hurt, and everyone can go back to fucking as usual tonight. If you ignore my words and insist on having me arrested, I'll be happy to let the shit fly. But at the same time, that will result in a lot of blood flowing, and one or two people won't be able to stop shitting. I hope you understand what I mean. Listen, don't look so stupid. I'm not what you think I am. You can't arrest me, nor will you be able to do anything to advance your career at my expense. Everything will go down the drain, whatever you do, if you don't listen to me and let me go. Because I'm just going to walk out of here anyway, with or without your consent. You've got enough pictures of me. Be smart and don't just look hot. Try to use them. I don't know how, but you'll figure something out. So what do you think? Do we have a deal?
At that moment, she orders her men to arrest Frank immediately. Frank holds his hand in front of the men, who are about to rush at him and arrest him. When they immediately stop, he calmly lights a cigarette, takes a long drag, immediately throws it away, and suddenly jumps so high in the air that they can no longer see him. No one understands how he did it, They all look at each other in confusion. They all stand there like little children who've just had their toys taken away. Some still try to shoot into the air, but she stops her men, and confused and with completely disbelieving looks, they slowly begin to pack everything up. Later, when she arrives at the police station, she runs past her stunned superior, ignoring all his questions, rushes into the equipment room, and watches all the recordings over and over again. As she does so, she stammers to herself,
Who the hell, what are you? I'll get you too, you asshole, I promise you.
End of part 2.